Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Grandmaster Knockout. In the left corner, the one, the only Dubov! And his opponent, ladies and gentlemen, Carlsen. Tonight, one board, 64 squares, playing white. Dubov playing black, Carlsen. Gentlemen, let the battle begin. Dubov, pawn to e4. Carlsen, pawn to e6. Dubov, pawn to d4. Carlsen, pawn to d5. Dubov, pawn to e5. Carlsen, pawn to c5. Dubov, pawn to c3. Carlsen, knight to c6. Dubov, knight to f3. Carlsen, bishop to d7. Dubov, bishop to d3. Carlsen, pawn takes d4. Dubov, pawn takes d4. Carlsen, queen to b6. Dubov, castles kingside. Carlsen, knight takes d4. Dubov, knight to bd2. Carlsen, knight to e7. Dubov, knight takes d4. Carlsen, queen takes d4. Dubov, knight to f3. Carlsen, queen to a4. Dubov, pawn to b3. Carlsen, queen to a5. Dubov, bishop to d2. Carlsen, queen to d8. Dubov, rook to e1. Carlsen, knight to c6. Dubov, pawn to a3. Carlsen, pawn to a5. Dubov, knight to g5. Carlsen, pawn to g6. Dubov, queen to f3. Carlsen, queen to e7. Dubov, queen to g3. Carlsen, bishop to g7. Dubov, knight to f3. Carlsen, castles kingside. Dubov, bishop to g5. Carlsen, pawn to f6. Dubov, pawn takes f6. Carlsen, bishop takes f6. Dubov, pawn to h4. Carlsen, queen to g7. Dubov, bishop takes f6. Carlsen, rook takes f6. Dubov, knight to e5. Carlsen, rook to f8. Dubov, rook to a2. Carlsen, knight takes a5. Dubov, rook takes a5. Carlsen, rook to f4. Dubov, rook to a2. Carlsen, king to h8. Dubov, pawn to h5. Carlsen, pawn takes h5. Dubov, rook takes h5. Carlsen, queen takes g3. Dubov, rook takes h7, check. Carlsen, king to g8. Dubov, pawn takes g3. Carlsen, rook to f1, check. Dubov, king to h2. Carlsen, rook to 1f7. Dubov, rook to h5. Carlsen, rook to g7. Dubov, rook to e5. Carlsen, king to f7. Dubov, bishop to e2. Carlsen, rook to fg8. Dubov, pawn to g4. Carlsen, king to f6. Dubov, king to g3. Carlsen, bishop to e8. Dubov, king to f4. Carlsen, bishop takes h5. Dubov, rook takes h5. Carlsen, rook to g5. Dubov, rook to h6, check. Carlsen, rook to 8 g6. Dubov, rook to h7. Carlsen, pawn to e5, check. Dubov, king to e3. Carlsen, rook to g7. Dubov, rook to h6, check. Carlsen, rook to 5 g6. Dubov, rook to h5. Carlsen, king to e6. Dubov, bishop to f3. Carlsen, king to d6. Dubov, rook to h8. Carlsen, pawn to e4. Dubov, bishop to e2. Carlsen, king to e5. Dubov, rook to e8, check. Carlsen, rook to e6. Dubov, rook to d8. Carlsen, rook to c7. Dubov, pawn to g5. Carlsen, pawn to d4, check. Dubov, king to f2. Carlsen, rook to c2. Dubov, king to e1. Carlsen, pawn to d3. Carlsen delivers the finishing blow. Dubov is down. If you love this fight, smash that like button and subscribe. More legendary battles are coming your way. See you in the next one.